I am the daughter of the Prime Minister's household, yet I insisted on marrying the stable boy of the estate. My parents severed ties with me, and my elder sister mocked me for having no shame. Years later, my husband regained his true identity, led a successful rebellion, and I became the Empress. Watching them become prisoners, my parents knelt and begged for their lives, while my elder sister cursed me to die a miserable death, on the night they were put to death. I was reborn back to before the engagement. The next day, the news of my legitimate sister secretly meeting a servant in the middle of the night spread throughout the capital. I watched as my sister proudly clung to my former husband from my past life and smiled. What she didn't know was that without me, my dear husband would have remained a servant for the rest of his life. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful stories every day. Now the story begins. On the night I was reborn, my legitimate sister Song Yunshu was caught in bed with a stable hand. When I rushed to the scene upon hearing the news, the servants had been ordered to remain silent, and the mansion had already calmed down. Only the mess in the main hall remained, a clear testament to the earlier chaos. Song Lian was heartbroken. You were already betrothed to the young general of the Li family. How dare you do such a thing? My sister knelt in the hall, crying out. He's always going off to battle. I refused to marry that short-lived devil. Hearing this from outside the door, I quietly drew back my foot. The young general of the Li family, undefeated in battle, took to the battlefield at 14 and was infeft as a marquis by 19. None of the noble sons in the entire capital could match him. When Song Yunshu became engaged to him, she had boasted about it to me countless times. It's just a pity that in the second year of their marriage, he fell ill and died on his way back to the capital, leaving Song Yunshu with nothing but a reputation for being a jinx to her husband. But that is the future. For now, he remains undefeated in battle. So Lady Song held Song Yunshu in her arms, shedding tears. My daughter, you used to look down on the lowly servants the most. General Li has achieved countless military merits. How can a mere stable hand compare to him? Mother, he has the talent of a top scholar. In just 1 month, the autumn imperial exams will be held. If he can achieve the highest rank, it wouldn't disgrace me. Song Yunshu pleaded. Mother, please trust me just this once. Father, Song Lian was initially furious, but he relented under the tearful gazes of his wife and daughter. If he truly can, he stroked Song Yunshu's face, pondered for a moment, and said, this matter must not be spread to outsiders. If he truly becomes the top scholar, so be it. If he doesn't, I will still ensure you marry into the Li family with all the glory and honor. I found it both amusing and heartbreaking to hear. In my past life, when I begged him to allow me to marry Zhao Shijin, he directly kicked me out of the house. In this life, even though Song Yunshu's affair was exposed in such a disgraceful manner, he still insists on preserving her dignity and making arrangements for her. I've long known that my mother despises him, so he has never treated me well either. What's there to feel sad about? I let out a bitter laugh, but when I looked up, I met Song Yunshu's gaze. Though kneeling in the hall, she looked like a triumphant hen, defiantly raising an eyebrow at me as if to say silently, he's mine now. In my previous life, although I was driven out, I at least managed to retrieve Zhao Shijin's deed of indenture. I funded his examination, and he indeed proved himself worthy. He passed the provincial examination and succeeded in the palace examination. The emperor personally appointed him as the top scholar. Song Yunshu was so certain of his future that he chose the path I had already taken ahead of time. So it turns out my legitimate sister has also been reborn. That very night, Song Yunshu got into Zhao Shijin's bed, and by the next day, the news had spread throughout the capital. Even though Song Lian tried his best to stop it, the rumors still flew over the high gates and grand houses, providing entertainment for the bored ladies and young misses in their inner chambers. By the end, it was too indecent to hear. It was said that although the Prime Minister's legitimate daughter was young, her nature was extremely frivolous, and she had already shamelessly been with the servants in the mansion several times. This time when she was caught, her pale, bare legs were still wrapped around the servant's waist, clothes were scattered all over the floor, and even a red undergarment was carelessly half-hanging on a chair, showing how intense the situation had been. After all, these rumors didn't come out of nowhere, and it's impossible to silence everyone's gossiping mouths. Song Yunshu, who had always been flamboyant, was even more provoked by others' sarcastic remarks and openly admitted his mutual affection with Zhao Shijin in public. This caused a bigger stir than I did back in the day. The Prime Minister's residence instantly became the biggest laughingstock in the entire capital. What infuriated Song Lian even more was that this rumor had been spread by none other than Song Yunshu herself. all to solidify her relationship with Zhao Shijin. That night, another uproar ensued. Madame Song defended her daughter, engaging in a heated argument with Song Lian. Song Lian was furious. How can you be so impatient, disregarding your status entirely? How am I supposed to explain this to the Li family? Song Yunshu sneered. Don't they just want a daughter of the Prime Minister's household? Father, don't forget you have 2 daughters. Just let Song Ningyi marry him instead, she said with a cold laugh. Hasn't she always been arrogant and disdainful? She's a perfect match for those military men. The betrothed daughter-in-law was having an affair with a servant of the household, bringing shame upon the general's mansion as well. In a fit of rage, old General Li called off the engagement and even intended to report the matter to the emperor. The Song family was already in the wrong in this matter. Song Lian brought Song Yunshu to apologize in person, slapping her across the face in front of everyone and ordering her to kneel and admit her mistake. Song Yunshu took the opportunity to kneel, sobbing and weeping. Yunshu has committed such a grave mistake. It is my failure in raising my daughter. I am truly ashamed to face the general. Song Lian then pulled me forward. But I have a youngest daughter, Ningyi, who has been raised in the seclusion of the inner chambers since childhood. She is well versed in the rules for women and admonitions for women. After marriage, she will surely be dutiful, obedient, and serve with all her heart. This can be considered my Song family's atonement. Listening beside them, I almost let out a cold laugh. I did indeed study, but what on earth are the rules for women and admonitions for women? Song Lian rarely saw me a few times a year, and he didn't care what books I read. Now he's just talking nonsense. This is simply absurd. The old general frowned and was about to refuse when Song Yunshu stood up and rushed to crash into the door pillar. After being held back, she struggled and cried out incessantly. If the general refuses to let my sister in, it means he won't forgive me. Let me atone with my death. Song Lian was heartbroken and filled with remorse. The old general was so angry that his face turned ashen. I have seen enough of this farce, so I stepped forward and bowed. Please calm your anger, General. Master Li has fought for the nation, and every woman in the capital admires him. Although our families are connected by marriage, in the end, my elder sister simply wasn't destined for this match. Ningyi also grew up hearing tales of your family's heroic deeds and once witnessed the young general's triumphant return on horseback through the city gates. In truth, I, too, have long admired him, but knowing it was not meant to be, I never spoke of it to anyone. This mention is not for the purpose of atonement, it's just that now that there is an opportunity, Ningyi does not wish to miss it, and hopes the old general will give it more consideration. I looked up at him with a sincere expression. The old general sighed, but did not outright refuse this time. I pressed my advantage. Father has deceived you about one thing. Ningyi has never read the rules for women or admonitions for women. The old general was taken aback. Song Lian's face suddenly changed. I ignored him and continued speaking on my own. I have studied medicine since childhood. Determined to save lives and help the world, unwilling to remain confined within the inner courtyards. The borderlands are remote and lack medical care. If I can marry into the Li family, Ningyi is willing to follow the general to the front lines. This way, I can both stay by the general's side and make a difference. The old general was deeply moved. This child, I knelt down. Ningyi is not afraid of hardship. I beg the old general to grant my wish. The old general quickly helped me up, his gaze turning stern and cold as he looked at Song Lian, then glanced at Song Yunshu with a warning tone in his voice. I accept this daughter-in-law. From now on, no one is allowed to bully the daughter-in-law of the Li family. Then, with a gentle gaze, she looked at me and sighed. It is Chae's blessing to have married you. The front line has achieved a great victory. He should be returning any day now. Then, on an auspicious day, I will surely come with a grand procession and marry you in the most splendid manner. The matter was resolved perfectly, and even Song Lian looked at me with newfound respect. Although I didn't care, Song Yunshu was so jealous that she gritted her teeth, cornering me in a secluded garden to mock me sarcastically. Do you think that by clinging to the Li family, you can rest easy? You only deserve to pick up what I don't want. Do you think Li Che is so mighty on the battlefield? Just wait and see. He's a short-lived fellow. Whoever marries him will be unlucky. I watched coldly as she finished cursing and stormed off in a huff. In her previous life, Song Yunshu was rumored to bring misfortune to her husband, and indeed, she was unlucky, because the matter truly had nothing to do with her. The young general of the Li family has passed away from illness. In truth, it was Zhao Shijin who had someone do it. The poison was administered with caution, to remain undetected. It needed to accumulate over time to take effect. However, The general, having fought in battles for years, was often on various medications for his wounds, which inadvertently accelerated the poison's potency. That is why it took his life in just 2 short years. I volunteered to marry into the Lee family to resolve this issue. The general's wife passed away early, and the old general never remarried in his lifetime. He was particularly strict in raising his only son. Which is how this young general came to be. In her previous life, Song Yunshu married into the family as the mistress of the household, holding a respected and honorable position. After I married Zhao Shijin, I opened a medical clinic to earn money and fully support his studies. Although I didn't pay much attention to Song Yunshu, I knew the young general treated her exceptionally well. He was an exceptionally good man himself. Unfortunately, he was often away on military campaigns. So the two spent little time together, and he passed away from illness just 2 years later. The young general was highly skilled in battle, almost invincible, so his sudden death shortly after marriage was truly suspicious. Song Yunshu was labeled as a husband killer, and filled with resentment. She turned the general's mansion upside down. Unable to bear loneliness, she hooked up with a servant, engaging in illicit affairs in the bridal chamber in broad daylight, and was caught red-handed. The old general, already heartbroken from losing his son, was so enraged by her wanton behavior that he fell seriously ill and soon passed away. Meanwhile, Zhao Shijin achieved the top honors in the imperial examinations and was at the peak of his influence in the court. Even after the old general's entire family had perished, he revealed his identity as a prince of the previous dynasty, rallied his old followers, and directly rebelled to claim the throne. The general's mansion has become a den of rebels. Song Yunshu was conscripted as a courtesan. Before being sent to the brothel, she frantically demanded to see me one last time. I agreed. In the Golden Won Hall, I stood side by side with Zhao Shijin. Song Yunshu pretended to beg for mercy, but taking me by surprise, she drew her sword and lunged at me like a madwoman. Covered in blood, he pointed at Zhao Shijin and laughed maniacally, cursing him as nothing but a bootlicking slave. Then he was hacked to death by a flurry of blades. That's right, Zhao Shijin was the slave she despised the most. I am a low-born illegitimate daughter raised in the outer courtyard since childhood. He was supposed to be trampled under her feet for a lifetime, yet he became the most revered person in the world, so she resented him. Eager to kill him without delay, in this rebirth, she no longer despises the servant's filth. What she coveted was not the talent of a top scholar, but clearly the position of emperor and empress. But why didn't she use her head and think? A delicate woman from the inner chambers, drawing a sword in the Golden Hall to assassinate the empress, and she actually succeeded. Was it that she wanted me dead, or did the emperor give his consent? My path to becoming the queen. Does Song Yunshu want it? Then take it. My life has just begun anew. My mother is Song Lian's mistress. She was originally the daughter of a respectable family, practicing medicine and saving lives alongside her father at the clinic, and the neighbors all called her the Lady Doctor. But because of her unique temperament, she was forcibly taken by Song Lian, who, fearing his fierce wife, could only keep her as an outside mistress. Even after giving birth to a daughter, she was not allowed to enter the household. After childbirth, her health steadily declined. Finally, when I was 9 years old, I couldn't hold on any longer. On the sickbed, she tightly held my hand, but her eyes showed a different spirit than before. "Yeah, don't cry, mother is finally free. This is a good thing." After she finished speaking, she let go of my hand as tears welled in my eyes. She had longed for freedom all her life, and in death, she vanished like a breeze, leaving no trace, only leaving me with a deep impression. After mother's death, I was taken into the Prime Minister's residence by Song Lian. Entering such a large mansion for the first time, I didn't want to show my unease, so I kept a stiff face. Upon meeting the charming and elegant Song Yunshu, Song Lian told me to call her elder sister. Before I could open my mouth, she glanced at me first, noticed the white silk on my head, and curled her lip, saying, "How unlucky." My mother was extremely strict with me in terms of conduct and studies. But she never restrained my temper, so I couldn't help but talk back. "You're ugly, and your words are just as unpleasant." Song Yunshu widened her eyes, seemingly surprised that someone dared to insult her. After a moment of shock, she angrily raised her hand and slapped me. I immediately tried to retaliate, but Song Lian pushed me, nearly making me stumble. Raised outside, she has no manners. With a cold expression, he had the servants take me to the most remote courtyard. I glanced back and saw Song Yunshu looking smugly at his side. From then on, this became the most common scene in the Chancellor's residence. I used to live in the outer courtyard and went to school with the neighborhood children. Even though I was a girl, The school accepted me out of respect for my mother. After moving into the chancellor's residence, Song Lian disliked me and wouldn't let me attend school. I spent my days sitting in my room learning embroidery. I grew impatient after just 2 days, took a pair of scissors, and shredded the silk fabric to pieces. Then I rushed into the main hall and stabbed the Nanmu table with the scissors. At that time, Mrs. Song had just returned from shopping with Song Yunshu and was helping her try on the newly bought jewelry. While Song Lian watched with a smile, the family was enjoying a harmonious and joyful time. I was disheveled, with a fierce expression. My mother is gone, and you lock me in the room. I won't let you bully me like this. Song Yunshu screamed in terror and hid in Mrs. Song's arms. Song Lian's face turned livid with anger. You rebellious girl, put down those scissors. Let me go to school. How improper for a lady of noble birth to appear in public. I want to go to school, I want to study. I stared fiercely at Song Yunshu, the scissors in my hand creaking as I gripped them tightly. If you won't let me go to school, I'll follow my elder sister wherever she goes. I go. Upon hearing this, Madame Song's face changed color, and she scolded Song Lian for bringing a debt-collecting demon home. Song Lian had no choice but to relent, but he still forbade me from going out, only hiring a tutor to teach me at home. I am a person easily contented, so I settled down as well. The tutor arrived. The first lesson taught me the rules for women. Mother said that reading can enlighten the mind, and I used to firmly believe that, but this book. I scrutinized it for half the night before I could see the words between the lines. The whole volume was filled with 2 words. Throwing a tantrum, I took the scissors and went back to the inner hall. It wasn't until the tutor began teaching me earnestly that I finally settled down in the Prime Minister's residence. The tutor didn't assign heavy coursework, so in my spare time, I studied the medical books my mother left behind, although the monthly allowance from Madame Song was not much. She still cared about appearances, so it was actually more generous than when I was in the outer courtyard. I occasionally asked someone to help me buy some medicinal herbs. That's how I got to know the young stablehand in the estate. He was the same age as me and worked with his father raising horses for the Prime Minister's residence. After getting to know me, he often ran errands and did small tasks for me, but when the master was teaching me, he would always linger outside the door, occasionally peeking in. Over time, I noticed his little secret and asked if he wanted to study. Though he was still young, he already had a very handsome appearance, with a pair of eyes as dark as black jade. Hearing my question, he didn't hesitate in the slightest and nodded in admission. From now on, I won't charge you for running errands outside the mansion, miss. I only hope you'll allow me to listen to the teacher's lectures out there. He came from a poor background. But he was an ambitious man. I admired his ambition, but he had a natural talent for studying and quickly grasped the basics. He didn't have many chores during the day, but he would read by moonlight late into the night, working very hard. On cloudy days, I would light an oil lamp for him. I knew it was hard for a poor family to produce a distinguished scholar, let alone someone like him, born into servitude. His future is set in stone. He should understand that too. Reading can sometimes be painful. But not reading can make one numb. At this moment, we are the same kind of people. It has been 2 years since I moved into the Prime Minister's residence, and Song Lian has never once come to see me. Song Yunshu, however, often visits. After the period when I threatened them with scissors, she frequently tests my limits. Seeing that I always ignore her, she grows bolder. Though she no longer dares to lay a hand on me, she never stops with the sarcastic remarks. When I'm around, she mocks me. When the little horsegroom is around, she scolds the little horsegroom. I thought she was just a spoiled young lady, so I didn't take it to heart. The little horsegroom stood with his hands at his sides and his head bowed, just listening. Then we both watched as she strode away, full of arrogance. Only once did she mess with my herbs, and for the first time, I lost my temper. I slammed the medicine pestle down hard with a dull thud, startling Song Yunshu so much that she trembled. She pointed a finger at me, trying to sound fierce but clearly frightened. Song Ningi, what do you think you're doing? With a cold expression, I checked her pulse, examined her hands and clothes, and breathed a sigh of relief when I found nothing wrong. I told her to get out. Song Yunshu was first frozen in fear, then flushed with anger. She shot me a fierce glare and stormed off in a rage. It's not that I care about her that much, it's just that those herbs are both medicine and poison. If she touches something she shouldn't and something goes wrong, I'll be the one to suffer. But even though I checked carefully, something still went wrong that night. It said that Song Yunshu felt unwell after returning to her room, and suddenly started vomiting and having diarrhea in the middle of the night after dinner. The mansion was thrown into a state of chaos. A doctor was summoned, who declared it to be poisoning. That night, rows of lanterns lit up in front of my courtyard. It was Song Lian's first time stepping into my quarters. Madame Song stormed in with a crowd of maids and guards in tow. She had the maids and matrons hold me down, then came up and slapped me hard twice across the face. "You wretched wretch. How dare you harm my daughter?" I looked up at Song Yunshu. She was being supported by her maid, her steps unsteady, but her complexion was rosy. The glance she shot me was both triumphant and venomous. I understood. I didn't harm her. She wasn't poisoned. "How dare you lie?" Madame Song's voice was shrill as she delivered another slap. "Destroy all the wicked things this wretched woman has made. Leave not a single trace." The guards rushed over in a crowd. The drying medicinal herbs were knocked over, and the ground medicinal powder was scattered. Countless feet trampled over my hard work. No, I struggled desperately, but I couldn't break free from the countless hands holding me down. I looked up sharply at Song Lian standing nearby, my eyes red-rimmed. "I studied medicine only to save lives. I would never harm anyone." Song Lian said nothing, still daring to talk back. Beat her until she obeys." The maids and matrons brought by Madame Song struck with extreme force. He shoved me to the ground, and punches and kicks rained down. I could only curl up into a ball, protecting my head and face. Suddenly, the people around me were pulled away, and someone covered me, holding me in their arms. The punches and kicks continued, but they all landed on someone else. I cried and pushed him, but he remained silent, only holding me tighter. I know I was wrong. I could only shout, at Song Lian's command. The maids and servants stepped back. The guards left the courtyard in complete disarray. "Mrs. Song gave me another stern warning before leaving with her people." Song Yunshu paused for a moment, first looking at my disheveled face, then breaking into a delighted smile. "Song Ningi, so you can cry too?" I stared back at her coldly. She turned to the little stable boy again. "You little stable boy are quite protective of her. Could it be that you've taken a fancy to her?" Song Yunshu laughed. Shaking like a flower in the breeze, the little stable boy released me, lowering his gaze without a word. "My face is badly swollen." His face was bruised, and there were bloody scratches on his neck. He wasn't much better off than I was. Song Yunshu studied the two of us for a moment. "You two actually look quite well matched like this." "Indeed, Song Ningi, you're only fit to marry such a lowly scum in the future." The little stable boy had been listening quietly, but at these words, he suddenly lifted his head, his gaze cold and sharp as a blade, making Song Yunshu instinctively shudder, but she quickly regained her composure. Being frightened by a mere servant was a blow to her dignity. She kicked the little stable boy fiercely and hurried away, her mind unsettled. He had originally come to my place to read, yet he ended up getting beaten for no reason, but aside from that one glance, his expression remained calm. Silently, he picked up the overturned medicine basket, knelt on the ground, and gathered the crushed herbs I had trampled. I sat still for a moment, then began tidying up with him. It wasn't until late into the night, when dark clouds veiled the moon and all was quiet around us, he paused and asked me softly, "Ningi, do you believe in fate?" His eyes were dark and deep, as if they had absorbed all the surrounding darkness. I fell silent for a moment, then let out a cold laugh. "Do you believe it, third brother?" "I certainly don't." Back then, Zhao Shijin was still called Zheng San. Being reborn felt like a lifetime ago. Seeing Zhao Shijin again, he was even more impressive than in my memory. It seems the saying that wealth and comfort nurture a person is indeed true. In his previous life, he actually suffered quite a bit with me. When I was expelled from the Prime Minister's residence, aside from his deed of servitude, I only took some personal belongings and a little valuables. After buying a shop and stocking up on medicinal herbs, there was hardly anything left. Thanks to my mother, the neighbors, and folks around all looked after my business a little, so I had to earn money by practicing medicine at the clinic, while Zhao Shijin had to study while doing the laundry and cooking. I've always felt that although life was simple and poor, there was nothing to be dissatisfied with. Zhao Shijin never complained either, so I thought he felt the same way. I just never expected that after he passed the imperial exams, after he became the top scholar, and even after he ascended the throne as emperor, he gradually distanced himself from me. Bit by bit, new batches of young girls, all innocent and lively, kept entering the harem. He still treated me with respect, but it was a distant, formal courtesy. Later, he dealt with everyone from the former prime minister's household. Song Yunshu was consigned to become a courtesan. Song Lian and his wife were beheaded. All servants of the Song family were exiled. It was only after years of cold observation that I came to understand the reason. It turned out he was so deeply troubled by his past as a horse servant and the hardships we endured together. This time, He followed Song Yunshu and gained everything. The resentment in his heart should have lessened a bit. I arranged to meet him on the small hill we used to frequent. I took out the cheap jade bracelet he had given me. Third brother. No, Zheng-san. This is your family heirloom jade bracelet. You said you would give it to your future wife, but now I won't be that person. So, take it back. Zhao Shijin lowered her gaze and glanced at it, saying nothing. I took his hand and placed the jade bracelet in his palm. My jade pendant, it was the only keepsake my mother left me. Since you no longer need it, please return it to me. Zhao Shijin clenched the jade bracelet tightly. His knuckles turned white from the force. With a crack, the jade bracelet shattered in his hand. And blood immediately welled up. I quickly moved to check, but he lowered his hand. He gave a self-mocking smile. Since you don't want it anymore, it doesn't need to exist either. I could only remain silent. At that time, Zhao Shijin had not yet treated me badly. But I had long seen through his true nature and could find no words to comfort him. He destroyed the bracelet to prove that no one but me could have it, but in truth, even if he had given it to Song Yunshu, she probably wouldn't have wanted it. That night, Song Yunshu came to my room on her own. I know. She drugged me. I looked up at him. To my knowledge, there is no drug that can truly induce uncontrollable desire. If it worked, it must have been a case of half willing, half forced. I let out a helpless laugh. Actually, it's not a bad thing. Being with me will be tough in the future. Since Song Yunshu took the initiative to offer herself, she should treat you well from now on. She is so beloved. Your future is finally smooth sailing. Congratulations, Ningyi. He reached out to hold my hand, and I instinctively flinched back. He grasped at empty air, his hand clenching into a fist. Are you really going to do this? It is you who insists on it. Fine. The jade pendant is at the residence. I didn't bring it with me. I'll return it to you tomorrow. I nodded. Just as I turned to leave, he suddenly called out to me from behind. Before I could even respond, a sudden push came from behind me. Caught off guard, I tumbled down the slope, instinctively protecting my head while my body collided with countless obstacles along the way. Rolling all the way down, my body was suspended in the air for a moment before I fell into the cave. A moment later, Zhao Shijin's voice came from the cave entrance. It grew fainter and fainter to my ears. Everything went black before my eyes as I completely lost consciousness. When I woke again, the moon was already high in the sky. I tried to move, and my whole body ached. By the moonlight, I examined myself. There were scrapes and bruises, and blood had stained my clothes in spots. It looked frightening. But in reality, it wasn't serious. What was truly serious was the broken arm. I pressed and pressed on my arm, steeled my heart, and forcefully set the bone. The chilly autumn night was so cold it forced a sweat of pain all over my body. I gasped for breath heavily, the sound like a broken bellows growing even more intense in the deep, quiet night. The sound of approaching hoofbeats outside the cave suddenly stopped, followed by a clear, bright inquiry, "Is anyone down there?" I immediately held my breath, shrinking back and hiding in the shadows. Who knows if it was that scoundrel Zhao Shijin sending someone back for a surprise attack? I stayed silent. The person peered around, then actually leaped straight down. My heart skipped a beat. Yet, he looked straight at me in the darkness. His eyes, under the moonlight, were as clear and bright as water. "Miss." He hesitated slightly, observed for a moment longer, and then asked, "Are you hurt? Don't be afraid, I'm not a bad person." I mean it, I came from out of town. It took me a long time to get to the capital." He probably realized that the more he explained, the worse it looked, so he simply stopped trying. "Maybe I should get you out of here first." I looked up at the top of the cave. Even if I weren't injured, I wouldn't be able to climb that high. And this person didn't even tie a rope, just recklessly jumped down. "How are you going to get me out?" I asked hoarsely. "That's simple." He reached out his hand to me. "I just need you to put your hand on my shoulder. It's no use just stalling like this." I tentatively placed my hand on his shoulder. He whispered an apology, "Excuse me," and wrapped his arm around my waist. My body was lifted into the air in an instant, and I quickly held onto him tightly. Moments later, we landed gently, still shaken. I instinctively looked up at him. He was taken aback. This person was unexpectedly so young. Though his complexion was dark, his features were sharp, with a high nose bridge and strikingly handsome looks. "See, I told you it would be easy to pull you up." He smiled, and a deep dimple appeared on one side of his cheek, revealing a touch of innocence. But then, noticing my blood-soaked clothes, he frowned, set me down, and turned to retrieve a small bundle from his horse. "I always carry medicine with me. Bandage yourself first, and I'll take you back to the city immediately." His tone was grave, and when he grew serious, he carried an air of authority. He doesn't seem like a bad person. After all, he took out a water pouch to clean my wound, gave it a simple bandage, and then helped me set my broken arm. Can you ride a horse? He held the reins and gently patted the horse's head. Of course I can ride a horse, Zhao Shijin taught me. But with my current injuries, it's really hard to keep my balance. I had to look up to see it. It was a tall, imposing horse, entirely black, under the moonlight in the night. Its coat shone with a startling brilliance, majestic, like a divine steed. I can't keep my balance. Then I'm afraid you'll have to ride with me. He reached out his hand to me. This time, I held his hand. He lifted me onto the horse's back with force, and the steed snorted impatiently. He then smiled and gave the horse's ear a firm rub. Old friend, lend a hand, will you? Then, with a leap, he mounted the horse, took the reins, and held me securely in his arms. The horse was indeed magnificent. Galloping swiftly toward the city gate without much jolting along the way, at the city gate, he dismounted first to knock, and somehow managed to get the guards to let us through immediately. As we rode through the streets, he looked around curiously. It truly seems like a wanderer who has been away from home for a long time. Where is your home? He asked. I was taken aback, only then realizing I had nowhere to call home. I can only whisper, I have nowhere to go. I truly dare not return to that home. The general returned from 2 years of campaigning, bringing back a woman. The entire general's mansion was shocked. The old general stormed out, intending to teach his wayward son, who was already betrothed yet still lacked restraint, a lesson. But he froze at the sight of me. How did you bring your bride back with you? The young man, General Li Che, also froze. I've seen Miss Song once before, and she didn't seem to look like this. He stared at me blankly. It wasn't until he realized how impolite it was to stare for so long that he quickly averted his gaze. Could it be that a girl changes 18 times as she grows up? He made a reasonable guess. The old general smacked him on the head with a stick. Bastard. She is the second daughter of the Song family. From now on, she will be the only daughter-in-law of the Li family. Li Che covered his head and hid behind me. Although he was thin, he was still tall and large in build, so he couldn't hide completely behind me and ended up dodging back and forth to avoid the old general's blows. Afraid of hitting me, the old general withdrew his hand. After 2 years away on campaign, he returned home to find his bride had been replaced. Anyone would be stunned for a moment in such a situation. I understand. I wanted to give them time to process it, but the old general's expression suddenly changed. Ningyi, are you hurt? The general's residence became busy again. They settled me properly in the guest room and insisted on calling a physician to treat me. It took a full 2 hours before everything finally settled down. I lay on the soft bed, tossing and turning restlessly. What happened today was truly perilous. That small hillside was desolate, the autumn night was chilly, and I was injured. If Li Che hadn't happened to pass by and rescue me, I might have died without anyone ever finding me. Having been married to Zhao Shijin for many years in my previous life, I had long known he was cold-hearted and faithless, but I never expected that even at a time when our relationship was so strong, he could still resort to such a vicious move. It seems I was wrong about him after all. My heart felt so heavy and suffocated that I couldn't sleep. I got up, threw on a coat, and stepped out of the room. The sky was just beginning to lighten, and the roosters had already started crowing. I sat in the courtyard and had just let out a sigh when I heard a clear, bright voice. Can't sleep. Li Che was sitting on a rooftop not far away, drinking. Seeing me look in his direction, he leaped gracefully and landed lightly in front of me. Were you frightened by what happened tonight? I nodded. He then made himself at home and sat down opposite me, placing the wine jug on the table. I've sent someone to prepare a calming medicine. It should be delivered soon. Judging by the time, after you drink it, you might feel better. I was taken aback. You know medicine. He shook his head with a smile. Just some emergency treatment methods on the battlefield. That's all. Medicine. Not really. His voice was gentle and relaxed, brushing past me with the cool breeze, which actually eased some of the restlessness in my heart. The medicine hasn't arrived yet. May I have a sip of your wine? He raised a brow and pushed the wine flask toward me. Frontier wine is very strong. Drink with caution, miss. Strong wine is exactly what I want. He took the wine pot and took a big gulp, immediately choked by the pungent taste that hit his chest, coughing violently for a while, as if even the dark clouds in his heart had been coughed out. After a while, when he finally caught his breath, he exclaimed loudly, "Good wine." Li Che laughed heartily. Looking at him, I couldn't help but laugh out loud as well. The calming medicine was delivered at that moment. Feeling quite at ease, I downed it in one gulp. Only then did I notice Li Che take an oil paper package from his chest. He had just unwrapped the first layer when he saw that I had already finished the medicine. He paused for a moment, hesitating. Candied fruit, do you still want it? Of course. He then smiled and unwrapped the oil paper package, placing it in front of me. I picked one up and ate it. It was very sweet. Li Che looked at me with great anticipation. I said, "It's delicious." He smiled, his dimples faintly visible. This young general, though very young, was renowned across the frontier, truly a very good man. Perhaps a person's character can really be seen in their face. Zhao Shijin was strikingly handsome, yet his narrow eyes, high nose, and thin lips, along with his dark, night-like pupils, always carried a hint of melancholy. Li Che, on the other hand, had a dignified appearance, with eyes as bright as stars, clear and luminous. His facial features were sharp and well-defined, exuding a heroic spirit between his brows. I could smell the scent of blood and iron on him, but when he smiled, it was as if he could dispel the darkness of night, leaving only a clear and gentle breeze. I've heard from my father about what has happened these past few days. You said you've long been fond of me and wanted to marry me. Was that sincere? I had just taken a light sip of tea when, caught off guard by his words, I choked and coughed repeatedly, my face flushing red. Yet Li Che continued speaking with an unchanged expression. You also said you witnessed my triumphant return on horseback through the city gates and that your heart was filled with admiration for me. Want to follow me to the front lines, to be by my side. Sincerely, it's sincere. Absolutely sincere, I interrupted him, nodding hurriedly. But you didn't recognize me tonight. Have I been away from home for too long, or am I just that hard to remember? It's too dark, I can't see clearly, really. Yet the moonlight was bright and clear. He gave a mischievous smile. Let's just say it is. My face flushed crimson, and I stammered a nod. I lied when I said I had seen the young general when he returned victorious from battle. I was always confined to the mansion before. And later I became very busy. By the time I was no longer busy, he had already passed away. I never actually knew what he looked like. But now that I see it, it truly lives up to its reputation. Li Che took the wine pot and casually asked, "By the way, how did you end up falling into that hole?" I couldn't help but frown. Seeing my hesitation, Li Che gave a light laugh. "Shall I send you back to the Prime Minister's residence tomorrow?" He had doubts, but he didn't press further. I shook my head, took a deep breath, and decided to tell the whole story. It was Zheng San who pushed me down. Zheng San. It was the servant from the Prime Minister's residence. I carefully chose my words. The one who was recently the subject of gossip along with my elder sister. Li Che suddenly understood. He remained composed, though after a moment of thought, his brow furrowed slightly. "Then why were you both in the outskirts? Why did he push you?" I'd rather tell him directly than have him hear it from someone else, so I kept a calm expression. We had a relationship when we were young and even exchanged tokens of affection. But since he has found a better place for himself, I naturally need to return his things and take back mine. To avoid any confusion in the future, I just didn't expect. I don't understand why he had to take my life. Maybe for his future, or maybe he was afraid Song Yunshu would misunderstand. Is it so unforgivable that he had to kill me to feel at ease? I let out a self-mocking laugh. Li Che's expression was grave. I asked him, "Are you angry?" He looked directly at me, his tone serious. "I am indeed angry." My heart tightened, and my nose tingled with emotion, but he continued, "Should I go beat him up?" Meeting my surprised gaze, he grinned. "Stealing my ex-fiancé, I have a good reason to give him a beating. We'll settle the score with him for deliberately trying to harm you." Slowly but surely, my nose stung even more intensely, and my eyes began to feel warm. Nodding vigorously, "Yes, on the day General Li returned to the capital after a victorious battle, the Prime Minister's residence was thrown into chaos. It was said that the young general had only just arrived home the previous night, yet the very next day he personally led a squad of elite soldiers to surround the Prime Minister's residence. He even gave the horsegroom who seduced the Prime Minister's legitimate daughter a severe beating, breaking at least a few of his bones. It would likely take him half a month to even get out of bed. Before leaving, he threw down the challenge, "If you're not convinced, feel free to come to the general's mansion anytime for a rematch. Who could possibly stand a chance against this god of slaughter?" The Prime Minister watched the entire scene, his face as dark as the bottom of a pot. In the end, he could only submit a memorial to the Emperor, but His Majesty has always favored the Li family, so he turned a blind eye to it. After the young general left, the old general came to propose marriage right after. Each member of the family was busy with their own affairs, and none of them cared about the face of the Prime Minister's residence. We were going to pick an auspicious day, but just 2 days later, my daughter-in-law suffered such a serious injury, which must be the work of some villain. Given the urgency, our family plans to hold the wedding in 10 days. I hope Prime Minister Song won't make things difficult. Song Lian looked at the row of guards behind the old general and couldn't utter a word, so the old general left, thoroughly satisfied. The guards remained stationed outside our courtyard, claiming they were there to protect their family's future daughter-in-law. During this time, Song Yunshu was exhausted from dealing with relatives and friends, and was eventually forced to stay indoors. Upon learning that Zhao Shijin was severely injured and unconscious, she was so furious that she wanted to come and reason with me. She didn't even make it through the courtyard gate before being stopped. She stomped her feet angrily outside the door, then went to personally take care of Zhao Shijin. She personally tended to every wound and applied medicine, likely hoping to deepen their bond through shared hardship. It seems my noble sister, having grown weary of luxury, truly intends to experience all the suffering I once endured, but she doesn't know that things will only get harder from here, and there will never be a day when bitterness gives way to sweetness. On the day of my wedding, the emperor himself attended the banquet. The entire capital seemed to be decorated with lanterns and banners in celebration. By the time Li Che returned after entertaining the guests, it was already late at night. Inside the bridal chamber, the red candles burned quietly. I watched him gently close the door and walk toward me step by step, my heart rising with each of his movements. The bridal veil was slowly lifted, and I looked up. He was dressed in a bright red wedding robe that fit him perfectly. The vibrant color only accentuated his handsomeness without any affectation. My heart pounded like a drum. He smiled, went to the table, poured 2 glasses of wine, and brought them over. Tonight isn't the right time for such strong liquor, so I had someone prepare wine instead. My dear, from now on, we must support each other. A toast to you. I reached out to take it, clinking glasses with him. The moment our eyes met, it felt as if I was embraced by a myriad of stars. He reached out and gently brushed my brow and hair, whispering softly, "You are so beautiful, my lady." The aroma of wine filled the air. His breath was scorching hot. Moonlight slowly spilled into the room, and I placed my hand on his shoulder. My husband. After we married, I began learning how to manage the household. The household already had its own set of procedures. My role was merely to oversee them, without needing to worry too much. What I truly cared about was Li Che's health. Checking his pulse daily was a given, and every single item of his diet had to pass through my hands. I knew that the toxins affecting his body, in the previous life, likely appeared after Zhao Shijin achieved the top rank in the imperial examinations, but I still can't feel at ease. Li Che knew nothing about this and just joked that I was using him for practice. Unlike the borderlands, the capital had fewer duties, so he spent his days idling around. The old general doted on him for a couple of days after his return, but soon found him utterly disagreeable. So, at the break of dawn, he would take me out of the estate and not return until nightfall. I merely mentioned in passing during my free time that I wanted to practice medicine like my mother, and he went and bought a shop just 2 streets away for me to set up a clinic. He only practiced medicine occasionally. There were 2 other elderly physicians at the clinic who worked there every day. Li Che had a restless and lively personality, never able to stay idle. One day he would accompany me at the clinic, the next he would take me horseback riding or for a stroll, and the day after that he would go on a shopping spree in the streets. Most of the money from the Prime Minister's residence had been spent on medicinal herbs, so I actually didn't have much jewelry. Li Che's taste was rather ordinary. Yet he always insisted on buying me more, which eventually led to me dragging him out to the suburbs instead. I really didn't want to face his taste in accessories. Time flew by, and a month later, the autumn imperial examination results were announced. Zhao Shijin passed the exam. He truly has talent. Even lying in bed for half a month couldn't hold him back. It seems winning the top scholar title is just a matter of time. I intended to hold him back a bit, but there was nothing else I could do. Just as I was worrying, Song Yunshu came to add to my troubles. Everyone in the general's residence knew we didn't get along, so they didn't bother with formalities and directly asked her to leave, but she stubbornly waited at my clinic for 7 whole days, finally catching me when I came in for my shift. The moment she stepped into the clinic and saw me sitting behind the desk, her eyes immediately lit up. She strode quickly over to me, lifted her chin, and once again put on that haughty air. "Song Ningyi, did you see the imperial exam results from the other day?" I was writing the prescription without looking up. "Didn't see it." "You," Song Yunshu fumed, snatching my pen away. I instinctively reached for it, then sighed. Song Yunshu said proudly, "Zheng Lang is at the top of the list. You'd better go see it right now. This is the first step I take to crush you beneath my feet. Is that so? Do you trust Zheng San that much? Hearing that name, her expression twisted. And she gritted her teeth, saying, "Don't you dare call him that." Why? I laughed. Then what should I call him? To this day, she still doesn't know that I was also reborn, only focused on making me regret everything. Yet she completely looked down upon the name Zheng San, brother-in-law, perhaps. For the sake of Song Yunshu's reputation, they hastily got married, though the wedding was so shabby it was hardly presentable. Proud and ambitious, how could Song Yunshu swallow such an insult? The only glory you'll ever have in your life was on your wedding day. How could that short-lived Li Che compare to Zheng Lang's bright and promising future? Let's see how you'll suffer from now on. I glanced over and saw Zhao Shijin stepping into the clinic. I said quietly. But you used to say he was just a horse slave, only fit to tend horses for others his whole life. Song Yunshu's face changed, and she snorted coldly. Since he's with me now, his status has naturally become much nobler, and he has a bright future ahead. Zhao Shijin stood still at the door. The sunlight outside was blazing, casting uneven shadows over his face from behind, but a pair of frost-filled eyes were clearly and coldly fixed on Song Yunshu, and Song Yunshu remained completely unaware. If you beg me then, I might just spare your life. She was still lost in her fantasy, her gaze circling my face as she sized me up. You took the initiative to marry Li Che. Do you like men that much? Well, you won't be short of men from now on. Your face isn't fit to be the star attraction, but it'll do for serving. Smack. I didn't let her finish her sentence. I stood up and slapped her. The slap was so forceful that it left my palm tingling. Frowning, I shook my hand. I've put up with you for a long time. Sister, could you not be so annoying? You dare hit me. Song Yunshu's eyes widened in fury, raising her hand high to strike me. Before it could land, someone grabbed her wrist. Li Che placed the medicine package on my desk and brushed her hand away. I knew how strong he was, and I couldn't help but glance at Song Yunshu's hand, which was trembling uncontrollably. This isn't the Song family's place. Miss Song, trying to bully my wife. You've come to the wrong place, haven't you? Li Che stood completely in front of me, looking down from above with an intimidating aura honed on the battlefield, causing Song Yunshu to tremble all over. She involuntarily stumbled backward several steps, until she bumped into Zhao Shijin. Turning her head, she looked back, her eyes reddening with grievance. Zheng Lang. Zhao Shijin, however, only gave me a deep look, then turned his gaze to Li Che, ignoring Song Yunshu. And left without looking back. Song Yunshu stood stiffly for a moment, sniffled, and still chased after him. I instinctively grabbed Li Che's sleeve, and he immediately took my hand, turning to ask what was wrong. What's wrong? Zhao Shijin came this time without saying a word, but in that instant before he left, the look he gave Li Che was venomous and fierce, like a lurking snake. I felt uneasy. Something was wrong with Li Che's wine. He enjoys drinking, and even when not in the military, he has a little every day. He probably didn't mix it into the food for fear I would notice, but in the moments between our kisses, I still tasted a faint medicinal flavor. I immediately became alert. After multiple extraction attempts, it can finally be confirmed. It was the prescription I personally formulated in my previous life. I once said that I studied medicine only to save people. Initially, this prescription was created to treat illnesses, but all medicine has its toxicity. I told Zhao Shijin that if it was overdosed, it would become a slow-acting poison, and the side effects wouldn't be noticeable at first, only accumulating over time until they eventually erupt. Therefore, one should not take it for more than half a month at a time. The prescribed dosage is only for half a month, precisely to prevent anyone from carelessly taking it for too long, but I never expected he would take it to heart. However, this prescription was developed only after we left the Prime Minister's residence and opened a medical clinic in my previous life. At this time, Zhao Shijin should not have known about it at all. My heart jolted in shock, and a chill shot up my spine, so cold it felt bone deep. So it was, Zhao Shijin has also been reborn. My mind is in turmoil as I sit dazedly in the pharmacy. In the previous life, it was only after Zhao Shijin achieved the top rank in the imperial examinations and entered the court that he was discovered by the remnants of the former dynasty who sought to restore their rule. Thus, the two sides colluded, finding an immediate and perfect agreement. Only he had the capability to harm Li Che. Li Che was stationed far at the border, where medical supplies were already scarce, no matter how well he managed his troops. It's impossible to guard against a thief for 1,000 days. Eventually, they succeeded in their plot. The current emperor and Li Che had been playmates since childhood. Now, though still young and diligent in governance and caring for the people, he is not exactly a formidable ruler. In the stable and prosperous era upheld by Li Che, he could be considered a wise emperor, but unfortunately, his greatest support, the general's mansion, has fallen. He is no match for Zhao Shijin at all. I originally married into the general's mansion to protect Li Che, and judging by Zhao Shijin's attitude toward me, every decision I make now is also to protect myself. Unconsciously, I wrote a string of names on the rice paper. They were all the subordinates who helped Zhao Shijin rebel in my previous life. Some of these people already hold important positions, while others are still lying low. I have no official position or title, and I don't even have access to these people. How can I warn Li Che in a way that will make the general's mansion take it seriously? After all, the idea of being reborn is too absurd. How could they possibly believe it? I thought about it until my head ached, but all I could do was sigh. Why are you sighing, my dear? Who has upset you again? Li Che asked with a smile. Tilting his head, with his long legs, he easily leaped over the counter, holding me in his arms as he sat down. Unexpectedly, he was startled by the cold when he took my hand, and quickly held it even tighter. You look so pale. Are you sick? He stared at me with concern. Before I could speak, memories of the past flooded my mind, and tears began to fall. Li Che, I'm sorry. He froze. I took a deep breath, covering my face with one hand. Li Che held me, gently stroking my hair. After a while, I calmed down and looked up to meet his gaze directly. Palace examination question. What is a peerless national hero? Li Che's expression changed abruptly, his eyes instantly turning grave. Consort Ying is already 2 months pregnant, and it can be diagnosed now. In 6 months, the old chieftain of the barbarian tribe will pass away, and the young, arrogant new chieftain will invade the border. You must return to defend against the enemy. As for events further in the future, even if I speak of them, they cannot be verified. Are these 3 items enough? Li Che's gaze was steady as he quietly looked at me. What do you mean by that, my lady? I lowered my gaze. Someone drugged your wine. It was the prescription I wrote in my previous life. He immediately seized the key point, previous life. He gently stroked my face and slowly lifted my chin. His gaze was steady and sharp, with no trace of playfulness left. Speak clearly, my lady. I can listen patiently. Li Che left. He also took away the paper on which I had written my name. My mind was still in a daze as I slowly walked out of the clinic. I truthfully recounted all the events before my rebirth and shared my speculations and suspicions. Zhao Shijin had most likely been reborn as well, which is why he would contact his old followers earlier than in his previous life, before his power is fully developed. This is a good opportunity to eliminate him, and as someone who has also been reborn, how will I be treated? Outside, the sun was bright and a cool breeze was blowing. It was just the right weather, neither too hot nor too cold. Will I still be able to freely feel such warmth in the future? I was walking aimlessly on the street. Before I knew it, I had arrived at the small courtyard where I used to live with my mother. Back then, Song Lian forced her to be his mistress because he was drawn to her free-spirited nature. Yet in the blink of an eye, he sought to cage her like a bird. The inherent flaws of men are nothing more than this. The courtyard was swept clean, and the furnishings were all familiar, suggesting that someone still lived there. I walked through every corner, remembering how she used to grind medicinal powder on the stone mortar by the windowsill and gently swing with me on the makeshift swing set in the corner. Her long hair brushed against my face. It was the deepest tenderness I, as a daughter, could ever feel. I walked to the swing set, but caught a scent that shouldn't have been there. My heart jolted, and I quickly searched around, finally discovering a large pool of blood and a dead body by the back wall. It vaguely resembled the maids and nannies who had taken care of me in my memory. Who was it? Zhao Shijin, or Li? No, it must have been Zhao Shijin. I was completely panicked. My heart wouldn't stop racing. I didn't even notice that I was trembling uncontrollably, only focused on following the trail of blood. As I walked into the alley, the blood trail ended. I turned around in place a couple of times, then suddenly remembered a place. I hurried to the nearby woodpile, and upon pulling it apart, I saw an old woman covered in blood, her face pale as she clutched a wound on her abdomen. She stared at me in panic, her eyes wide with fear. It was the midwife who had delivered me when I was born. Tears immediately streamed down my face. Granny Liu. Her eyes had grown dim, and she struggled to make out my features, only speaking after a long while. Little Ningyi, it was me. I knelt down and took her hand. Why, who did it? Her body was originally soft, but upon hearing my words, she immediately tightened her grip on my hand and struggled to sit up as if fighting for her last breath. That person was wearing your jade pendant. That was your jade pendant, your mother. Back then, she had a difficult childbirth, the Prime Minister wasn't there, and I made the decision to save the mother, but the child was lost. But then you suddenly appeared outside the courtyard, with no one to claim you. Your mother took you as her own daughter. Ningyi, run quickly, they're coming for you. I felt the blood in my body run cold, unable to utter a word, and could only tremble as I reached to check her pulse. From the moment I first saw her, I knew she wouldn't make it, but I still took her pulse, until it completely faded beneath my fingertips. I froze for a moment, taking a sharp, deep breath. Covering my face with my hands, the jade pendant, I am not my mother's biological daughter. The jade pendant was an item I wore as an infant, which can prove my identity. Zhao Shijin was also reborn, and when I tried to reclaim the pendant, he did not hesitate to try to kill me. It turns out it was to steal my identity, and I just told the ruler of this dynasty about the remnants of the former regime. The identity of the orphan from the previous dynasty became a death sentence. So it turns out, I am just a joke. When I returned to the general's residence, Li Che had not yet come back. I waited idly in the courtyard all night until the first light of dawn broke. I moved my stiff body inside, so I simply went back to my room and slept like a log. By the time I woke again, it was already dusk. Li Che sat at the table drinking tea. My lady, are you feeling unwell? He walked to my bedside, picked me up, and let me lean against him. My fingers curled unconsciously. Clutching the front of his robe, I remained silent. He also fell silent. After a long while, I finally asked, my voice hoarse, do you really believe what I said? Li Che chuckled softly and gently kissed my forehead. A married couple is one entity, so naturally, I believe. What do you plan to do? Li Che pushed me away. I couldn't help but tremble. He lifted my chin, gently stroking my brows and hair, his bright eyes soft and tender as they gazed at me. Knowing this, does it make you less afraid? I grabbed his hand. Save me. Li Che's eyes darkened as he pulled me back into his embrace. Zhao Shijin does indeed have personal connections with court officials. They were established just within the past month. A mere stable hand, even if he has managed to befriend the Prime Minister. How could he possibly have such close ties with high-ranking officials? Starting the investigation from this point will surely yield results. The investigation lasted until winter. The newly appointed scholar from the Prime Minister's residence also never sent any more news. By the time I saw him again, even the Prime Minister had been imprisoned. The court was thrown into a great uproar, shaking both the capital and its outskirts. Remnants of the former dynasty, under the banner of the former prince, plotted a rebellion. The Prime Minister's residence was found to be harboring the former prince. Such a heinous crime. Li Che is still alive. And the army he commands is invincible. But this battle doesn't need to be fought anymore. Zhao Shijin has no chance of turning the tables. I begged Li Che to let me see Zhao Shijin one last time. He agreed. Inside the dungeon, Zhao Shijin was heavily shackled, and I sat down outside the cell. He gazed at me for a moment, then a faint smile suddenly curled at the corner of his mouth. So you've also been reborn? I actually didn't notice. I opened the food box I brought and laid out the dishes one by one on the ground. I didn't notice it either. Your Majesty is truly bold. Even after being reborn, you still dare to use the prescription I wrote with my own hands. Looking down on me that much, are you? The sound of chains clanking. Zhao Shijin slowly walked up to me, supporting himself with one hand on the ground as he sat down with difficulty. It's not that I look down on you, it's that I trust you too much. Your studies were average, but you truly have a talent for medicine. I actually can't find anything more effective than that prescription of yours. I chuckled and poured him a drink. Thank you very much for your praise, Your Majesty. I won't be able to see you off later, so let this meal serve as a farewell. It's much better than the hasty ending in our previous life, isn't it? His long eyes narrowed slightly. He took the wine glass and drank it all in one gulp. Previous life. Was I not good to you in our previous life? You shared hardships with me, and I let you share prosperity with me. I am the Emperor, and I shall make you my Empress. Share the glory with me. Why did you betray me? I remained silent and drank the wine as well. After a long while, he let out a faint sigh. Your Majesty, you took my jade pendant, seized my place like a cuckoo in a magpie's nest. And yet you dare accuse me of betrayal. If you truly wished to honor me, why didn't you support me as Emperor? Zhao Shijin laughed. You are a woman. There are too many obstacles. Nor do you have the ability to inherit the throne. I nodded. Indeed, I am not capable enough. That is too tempting, and too dangerous. It's lonely at the top, so I don't want it anymore. Zhao Shijin finally frowned in confusion. Then why won't you give it to me? Don't you love me anymore? I widened my eyes. This moment was simply unbelievable. You dare talk to me about love? Do you, who have never been loved, even understand what love is? Love, of course, there once was, but his deliberate neglect and humiliation after achieving success and fame wore away the love of those days. Besides, in the Golden Won Hall, you tacitly allowed Song Yunshu to kill me, after being reborn and then climbing up to become the legitimate daughter of the Prime Minister's household. If I still talk about love, wouldn't that be too ungrateful? Zhao Shijin was lost in thought for a long time, then smiled. You're much smarter than that fool, but after all, I'm not the real former dynasty prince, the infant rescued from the harem by the commander back then after the commander's death. Who could tell whether it was a boy or a girl? Shijin, what a fine name. Cherish time like gold, flourishing like brocade, fortune turns in time, a splendid realm. It works well for both men and women, right? Ningyi, is this a threat? Too bad he probably never thought he would fail. So after being reborn, the first thing I did was to destroy all the clues that could prove my identity. What a great favor. I shook my head. Either way, I'm going to die. Better to die as a prince of the former dynasty than to die as a horse slave. Right, I give you the name Zhao Shijin. Save some dignity, Your Majesty. I reached into my sleeve, took out a pill, placed it on the ground, and gently pushed it toward Zhao Shijin. This thing can ease His Majesty's suffering when he departs. After all, I truly have a talent for medicine. This is the only poison I have ever concocted with my own hands in 2 lifetimes, something that only brings harm to the body. The instrument of death, poison. Zhao Shijin picked up the pill with keen interest. You would actually make poison for me? I smiled. After all, as long as you live, you keep me awake at night. Your Majesty. I rose and bowed. Farewell. Zhao Shijin died in the bitter cold of that year. It was the time of the new year. Before his death, he insisted on seeing his wife. By the Empress' special permission, Song Yunshu, who was also in prison, was brought over. It was said that in prison, Song Yunshu cursed Zhao Shijin with the most venomous words. Zhao Shijin simply listened calmly. When she cursed, if it weren't for your whore of a mother who slept with 1,000 men, giving you that pretty face, who would even glance at you? He smashed the plate, picking up a sharp fragment. He swiftly slashed it across Song Yunshu's neck. 1 strike, 1 kill. Blood gushed out, and Song Yunshu stared wide-eyed as he breathed his last. Zhao Shijin chuckled, and as the prison guards swarmed in, he leisurely wiped the blood from his face. Then he sat down by the wall and slowly closed his eyes. The coroner's autopsy result was sudden death. At least he died peacefully. Song Yunshu is frivolous, foolish, arrogant, and conceited, but the harm she can cause me is, after all, limited. In her previous life, being forced into servitude as an official prostitute and having her dignity trampled upon was the most vicious punishment a woman could endure. I once thought to plead for her, but she stabbed me to death with a sword before I could. Now she has died again at Zhao Shijin's hands, which is truly lamentable, and Zhao Shijin is finally no longer my nightmare. By the time Li Che told me all this, we were already on our way to the borderlands. The old chieftain of the barbarians has passed away, and the new young leader, arrogant and reckless, is invading the border. He must return to defend against the enemy. I lifted the carriage curtain. The chill of early spring still felt piercing. I turned back, took the wine flask, and drank a mouthful of strong liquor. Jumping off the carriage, he quickly grasped the reins and leaped onto the horse. He turned back with a hearty laugh. Li Che, dare you compete with me? Li Che lifted the carriage curtain, raising his eyebrows with a smile, the dimples on his cheeks faintly visible. What's there to be afraid of? He made a move to get out of the car. I shouted, not with your old buddy. I'll go ahead, giddy up. I cracked the whip. The crimson cloak billowed. Laughter echoes through the mountain forests. This life is different from the previous one. I am no longer confined to courtyards or even the deep palace. I gallop on horseback, singing freely as I soar across the wilderness. This is the freedom that truly belongs to me. In the 2nd month of arriving at the frontier, Li Che achieved a great victory over the barbarian tribes. Amidst thousands of troops, he directly took the head of the new chieftain. For a time, he shook the entire frontier, leaving all who heard of it in awe and fear, and was revered as a ghostly deity or a Rakshasa. And I practiced medicine in the army, treating the wounded and sick, saving countless lives. Not Miss Song, nor Lady Li. Ningyi, that is Ningyi, peace, freedom. This was my mother's original intention when naming me. This freedom is not merely about the vastness of mountains and seas, rather, It is the liberty to choose one's own life according to one's heart. The desert stretches far and wide, with yellow sand filling the sky. The moon at the frontier is also steeped in a sharp, biting chill. Li Che practiced with his spear under the silvery moonlight. I sit on the hillside watching him. My general, this is my choice. The end.